It's November. Your neighbours packed up their gardens weeks ago, put away the last tools, and are probably sipping tea indoors. But here you stand, a packet of seeds in hand, staring down at frozen, unforgiving soil. Sounds insane, right? Everyone tells you it's too late to plant anything, that the seeds will just rot, or the birds will steal them. But what if I told you that right now, in November, you have a unique opportunity to lay the foundation for a truly fantastic harvest next year? What if this isn't procrastination, but a secret gardening technique used only by the most seasoned professionals? In this video, we're going to figure out whether planting cover crops in November is a mistake or a stroke of genius. I promise by the end of this video, you'll look at your empty garden differently, and you might just head out to sow seeds tomorrow. Stick around because we're about to uncover the mysteries of late fall planting. Before we dive headfirst into the November chill, let's quickly review exactly what cover crops are. Simply put, these are plants we grow not for harvest, but purely for the benefit of the soil itself. They are often called green manure. Their mission is to restore, feed and heal the soil after a tough growing season. In the summer and early fall, they grow vigorously, building green mass, while their roots aerate the ground. We then chop them down and incorporate them into the soil, where they decompose, enriching it with organic matter and nutrients. That's the classic approach. But late fall planting operates under totally different rules. Here, we use nature itself, its winter dormancy and spring awakening, as our main allies. We aren't expecting rapid growth in the fall. We're playing the long game, betting entirely on a strong spring start. It's this strategic shift that causes so much debate and confusion. So let's put those arguments to rest and understand exactly how this works. So the main misconception we constantly run into is this. People think November is simply too late to sow seeds. Why do they think that? The logic is straightforward. Winter is right around the corner. We're talking about hard frosts, maybe even snow. It seems obvious that delicate seeds just won't survive those conditions. They imagine the seeds either freezing solid or rotting away in the cold, damp soil. People picture their efforts literally turning to ice, resulting in nothing but disappointment and wasted money on seeds come spring. This fear is completely understandable. It's rooted in our experience with spring and summer planting, where warmth is the absolute key for germination. But this is where we need to completely shift our mindset. Winter sowing isn't about promoting fall growth. It's about preserving or storing the seeds in the soil until spring. They are not supposed to sprout now. Their job is to lie dormant in the cold ground, undergo natural stratification, harden off, and wait for that first burst of spring warmth so they can get a powerful, early start. Just imagine wild plant seeds that drop in the fall. They calmly survive the winter under the snow, only to emerge early in the spring. We are simply copying this natural mechanism. Let's dive into the science behind this process. What exactly happens to seeds when they are sown into that cold November soil? They enter a state of deep dormancy. The low temperatures inhibit germination, but won't kill the seeds, provided, of course, that we chose the correct winter-hardy varieties. In fact, this cold period is actually beneficial. We call this process stratification. It mimics the natural conditions of winter, which helps the seeds wake up more uniformly and vigorously come spring. When the spring sun begins to warm the ground and the snow melts, these seeds are presented with the perfect conditions for a robust start. The soil is saturated with moisture, a crucial element often missing when we rush to sow into dry spring earth. They begin to sprout at the slightest positive temperatures, giving them a critical head start, outpacing both the weeds and our own busy hands, which are often delayed getting back into the garden. So, the seeds aren't rotting. They are undergoing a vital winter preparation that primes them for explosive rapid development. The key, however, is selecting the right varieties, those crops genetically programmed for this exact scenario, such as winter rye or vetch. Let's look at the first massive benefit of sowing cover crops in late autumn, the huge amount of time you save in the spring. Think about that infamous spring rush. You have to get the greenhouses ready, start your seedlings, till the garden beds, Apply fertilizer. The to-do list seems endless, and the weather never cooperates. It's either pouring rain or suddenly scorching hot. Amidst all this hustle, finding the time and energy to also sow your cover crops is incredibly tough. As a result, we often postpone this crucial task or skip it entirely. Now imagine a different scenario. You arrive at your garden in the spring, and a lush, green carpet of cover crops is already thriving in your beds. They're already doing the work. They're actively breaking up the soil, suppressing those early weeds, and building up valuable organic matter. You didn't have to scramble to get them in the ground. All that work was finished back in November, at a relaxed pace, when the primary gardening season had already wound down. It's essentially making a smart investment in the fall that pays off with a ready-to-go asset come springtime. You free up those precious spring weeks for more critical tasks, securing the knowledge that the foundation for healthy soil is already laid and actively improving, all without any extra effort from you. The second key advantage is the perfect use of moisture. Spring moisture from melting snow is a real treasure for plants. It's clean, structured, and highly oxygenated. However, this moisture quickly evaporates from the topsoil, especially if the spring is windy and sunny. When we sow green manure in the spring, we often have to water the beds additionally just to ensure germination. Now let's look at winter sowing. The seeds lie dormant in the ground all winter. The snow that covers them isn't just a white blanket. It's the perfect insulating duvet and a future water source. In the spring, it melts slowly, gradually saturating the soil with moisture. Our green manure seeds find themselves in the most favourable conditions. They swell and germinate, utilising this beneficial snowmelt water, the very best kind for them. They are protected from drought during those crucial first days of life. They receive a 100% moisture guarantee directly from nature, which ensures strong, uniform sprouts. Essentially, we are using winter precipitation as an automatic drip irrigation system that turns on exactly when it's needed most. The third major benefit, one that absolutely everyone appreciates, is powerful weed suppression. Where do all those weeds come from every spring? Their seeds, just like the cover crop seeds, overwinter in the soil, waiting for their moment, and often they prove much quicker to sprout than our main crops. But not when you use winter cover crops. Varieties sown in the fall, particularly hardy winter grains like rye, start growing incredibly early. As soon as the snow melts, they quickly form a dense, thick green carpet that simply chokes out the competition. First, this physical barrier drastically shades the soil, depriving weed seeds of the light they need to sprout. Second, the cover crop's vigorous root system rapidly sucks up the moisture and nutrients in the topsoil, leaving competing weeds severely depleted. Furthermore, some cover crops, rye being a prime example, are allelopathic. This means their root secretions naturally suppress the growth of other plants nearby. The result? By the time you're ready to plant your main crop, you'll have a clean, weed-free garden bed, saving you hours of exhausting weeding during the crucial start of the season. The most important question now is, what exactly should we be sowing in November? You cannot afford to get this wrong. If you plant tender cover crops like phacelia or buckwheat, you will honestly just be throwing those seeds away. We must stick strictly to winter-hardy, frost-resistant varieties. These are plants whose life cycle is perfectly tuned for surviving the winter months. They don't just tolerate the cold. They actually require a period of chilling, known as vernalization, for proper development. Typically, they germinate in the fall, form a tight little rosette of leaves, stay dormant under the snow, and then resume vigorous growth early the following spring. However, when planting this late in November, the seeds won't even have time to germinate before the ground freezes, which is actually fine. The seeds will simply remain dormant in the soil until spring arrives. The absolutely foolproof choices for November are winter rye, winter vetch, and in certain situations, winter canola, rapeseed, and turnip rape. You can also use white mustard, but that comes with specific caveats that we'll cover later. Remember this crucial rule. The seed packet must clearly state the word winter or overwintering. That label is your ticket to a successful, late season planting. Let's dive deep into the king of late fall planting, winter rye. If I had to choose just one cover crop for November, rye would be my undisputed choice. It is a true powerhouse of resilience and soil health. This grain laughs in the face of frost. It easily handles temperatures down to -25 degrees Celsius, even without a blanket of snow. Its major superpower, though, is its incredibly robust root system. Rye roots plunge 5 to 6 feet deep, breaking up even the densest, hardest packed soil, like millions of tiny, natural ploughs. They pull up essential nutrients from the subsoil, bringing them back up where future crops can easily access them. In the spring, rye grows extremely fast, generating a massive amount of valuable green biomass. Plus, it has powerful biofumigant properties. The secretions from its roots suppress the growth of many harmful fungi and nematodes. It literally helps heal the soil. By sowing rye in November, you guarantee yourself loose, well-structured, healthy, and weed-free soil come spring. It is the perfect preceding crop for almost all vegetables, especially potatoes, tomatoes, and cucumbers. If rye is the king of cover crops, then winter vetch is definitely the queen, and they truly perform best when planted together. Vetch belongs to the legume family, and its most valuable talent is atmospheric nitrogen fixation. Special nodule-forming bacteria live on its roots. They do something no other plant can. They capture nitrogen directly from the air and convert it into a form plants can easily use. Essentially, vetch acts as a free factory, producing nitrogen, the single most crucial element for plant growth. By planting vetch, you naturally enrich your soil with this invaluable fertilizer. On its own, vetch has thin, sprawling stems, meaning it needs support, and this is where rye steps in. Rye's sturdy stalks serve as a natural trellis for the vetch, preventing it from lodging or collapsing onto the ground. The result is a perfect partnership. The rye breaks up the soil and provides structure, while the vetch saturates it with nitrogen. The rye and vetch mix is a classic, time-tested recipe for maximum fertility restoration. By spring, you will have a balanced green manure, rich in both organic matter and essential nitrogen. How about white mustard? It's a hugely popular cover crop, and lots of people want to sow it even in November. Can you do that? The answer is both yes and no. Let's take a closer look. Mustard is not a true winter crop in the traditional sense. If it manages to germinate, it won't survive the winter. Hard freezes will definitely kill it off. But that fact actually holds the key to its benefit when planted just before winter. If you sow mustard right before the first hard frost hits, it might manage to germinate and put out some small sprouts. These will die during the winter, but the frozen green matter and roots will stay in the soil. They will act as a natural mulch, protecting the ground from erosion, and in the spring they will quickly break down, releasing their nutrients. Alternatively, if you sow it into already frozen soil, the seeds will simply lie dormant until spring and will germinate very early. The major upsides of mustard are its rapid growth and its excellent phytosanitary qualities. It helps deter pests like wireworms and suppresses diseases like blight. Now for the main downside and crucial rule: mustard belongs to the brassica family. For this reason, you absolutely must not plant it before or after crops like cabbage, radish, or turnips, as they share common pests and diseases. This rule is critically important to remember. Now let's talk about the technology itself. How do you even sow seeds in November? The method of sowing under the snow sounds particularly intriguing, but honestly, it's quite simple. There are two main scenarios. The first, the ground hasn't frozen yet, but consistent hard frosts are just around the corner. In this case, we simply scatter the seeds across the surface of the bed and lightly rake them in. You don't need to bury them deep. Just ensuring contact between the seed and the soil is enough. The whole point is that they must not sprout before the freezes hit. The second, and most interesting scenario, the ground is already partially frozen, or maybe you've had the first light snowfall, up to about 2 inches, and these are actually perfect conditions. We just broadcast the seeds directly onto this frozen crust or right onto the snow. Don't worry, This truly works. In the spring, as the snow begins to melt, the seeds, carried by the meltwater, will gradually sink down and be naturally pressed into the soil surface. This guarantees that crucial, perfect contact with the damp earth. This method completely eliminates the risk of premature germination followed by freezing and death. Birds aren't very active during this cold period, so seed loss due to scavenging is minimal. This is arguably the lazy gardener's dream and an extremely effective sowing method. One of the most satisfying parts of planting in November is the absolute minimal soil preparation required. You can completely forget about deep digging or excessive tilling. The soil is already tired after the main growing season, and unnecessary intervention will only disturb its vital structure. All we really need to do is clear away any large plant debris, though the smaller bits can certainly stay put, and lightly smooth out the surface with a rake. If your soil is extremely compacted, you can use a scuffle hoe or a similar tool to just slice the top layer, maybe 2 to 3 inches deep, or 5 to 7 centimetres. But absolutely no deep digging or turning over the soil with a spade. Cover crops, especially rye, are fantastic at aerating the ground themselves. Their roots will do this work much better and far more gently than any shovel ever could. We are simply creating a shallow seed bed so the seeds aren't resting directly on hard, naked clumps of earth. The savings in time and effort here are obvious. We are trusting nature and the future plants to do the heavy lifting for us, and that is the absolute best approach in organic gardening. How much seed should you actually sow? When you are planting seeds before winter, the rule of thumb is better too much than too little. Do not skimp on the seed. Why is that the case? We have to remember that the conditions for the seeds won't be absolutely ideal. Some seeds might not survive the winter due to various factors. Others might be blown away by strong winds or washed out by melting snow. That's why we deliberately increase the seeding rate by about 50%, or even double it, compared to what we would use in the spring. Our goal is to achieve a maximally thick and dense carpet of growth come spring. This density of sprouting is what ensures effective weed suppression and allows for the accumulation of a large amount of green biomass. Don't worry about the plants being too crowded. That is the whole idea. They are competing with the weeds in the initial stages, not with each other. Approximate rates are as follows. For winter rye, aim for about 2 to 2.5 kilograms per 100 square meters. For a rye and vetch mix, use 1.5 kilograms of rye combined with 1 kilogram of vetch per 100 square meters. Scatter the seeds as evenly as possible, almost like you are salting the earth. A thick, heavy stand of growth is the absolute key to success here. We've already covered what you can sow. Now let's clearly define what should absolutely not go into the ground in November. Knowing this will save you significant frustration and wasted seed money. To start, forget about the most common warm season green manures. Phacelia, buckwheat, lupin, peas, and oats are all warm weather crops. Their seeds are not meant to sit dormant in cold soil for months, and any potential sprouts will be killed by the first hard frost. Sowing these specific crops in November is a guaranteed recipe for failure. They simply won't emerge come spring. It's crucial to understand the difference between annual and overwintering crops. Annuals, or spring crops, are sown in the spring for a harvest the same year. Overwintering crops are sown in the fall, survive the winter, and yield their benefit or harvest the following year. For late fall green manure planting, we must stick strictly to overwintering varieties. Always read the seed packaging carefully. If the label doesn't explicitly state that the variety is overwintering, don't take the chance. It's much safer to save those seeds until spring. This simple selection principle will save you time, stress, and money. Let's return once again to a vital rule that beginners often overlook: the rule of crop rotation or crop succession. This rule is just as critical when dealing with cover crops, or what we sometimes call green manure. The main principle is straightforward. You must never plant a cover crop from the same botanical family as the main vegetable crop you plan to grow in that spot the following season. The clearest example is the Brassicaceae family, often known as the cruciferous vegetables. This family includes popular cover crops like mustard, rapeseed, oilseed radish, and turnip. It also includes many of our staple garden vegetables, all types of cabbage, radish, turnip, daikon, and arugula. Why is this a problem? They share common soil-borne diseases, most notably clubroot, and common pests, such as the destructive flea beetle. If you sow mustard and then plant cabbage in that exact spot, you won't be improving the soil health. On the contrary, you will be creating perfect conditions for the build-up and rapid reproduction of pathogens and pests. You risk losing your entire cabbage harvest. So, consider this an absolute rule. Never plant Brassicaceae vegetables after Brassicaceae cover crops for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. Grains like rye and legumes such as vetch are much more universal and safer choices in this respect. Let's take a closer look at how cover crops fundamentally change soil physics. They aren't just fertilizer, they are genuine architects of soil structure. Imagine heavy clay soil. After a good rain, it turns into a gluey, sticky mess, and when the drought hits, it bakes into a hard, cracked slab, almost like concrete. Working with that kind of earth is a total nightmare. Now picture thousands of winter rye roots penetrating that same soil. They act like tiny augers, drilling through those dense layers and creating crucial microchannels and pores. When we mow the tops in the spring, the roots stay in the ground and begin to decompose. Where they were, we get air pockets and spaces filled with rich humus. The soil becomes loose, airy, and beautifully crumbly, or friable. Water and air can now penetrate freely, nourishing the roots of future crops deep down. Conversely, if you have light sandy soil that struggles to retain moisture and nutrients, green manure can still solve your problem. The decomposing organic matter binds the sand particles together, increasing the soil's water retention and overall fertility. In any case, cover crops are the absolute best way to improve the structure of your land. Green manures aren't just food for your future plants, they are a true delicacy for all the inhabitants of your soil. When we talk about soil fertility, we often focus solely on chemical nutrients, but healthy soil is a living organism, teeming with billions of bacteria, fungi, microorganisms, and, critically, earthworms. They are what truly make the earth alive. This entire army of workers needs sustenance, and the absolute best food for them is organic matter. In the spring, when you cut down the green mass of your cover crops and leave it right on the garden bed, or lightly incorporate it into the soil, a real feast begins. Worms and microorganisms immediately rush to this food source. They process the green material, turning it into the most valuable vermicompost, the best fertilizer in the world. The activity of the soil biota rapidly increases. This means that all processes in the soil accelerate, nutrients become more readily available to your plants, and the overall health of the soil dramatically improves. By sowing cover crops in November, you ensure your underground helpers have work and food all spring long, and in return, they create fertile, living soil for you. One of the most critical aspects when dealing with winter-sown cover crops is deciding the exact time to cut them down in the spring. The main thing here is timing. You absolutely cannot miss the window. We need to chop this green matter down before they start flowering, and definitely before they have a chance to set seed. Why is this so crucial? While the plants are young, all the nutrients, including that valuable nitrogen, are stored in their soft, succulent stems and leaves. The stems themselves are soft at this stage and break down easily in the soil. However, the minute the plant starts to form buds and flower, it diverts all its energy and resources into producing seeds. The stems quickly get tougher, increasing their fiber content while the nutritional value drops dramatically. If we miss this prime window, we face several problems. First, the soil will receive significantly fewer benefits. Second, that tough, fibrous green matter will take much longer to decompose. And thirdly, and perhaps worst of all, if the cover crops manage to set seed, they instantly turn from helpful allies into aggressive weeds that you'll have to fight later, So, monitor your plants closely in the spring. As soon as they reach 8 to 12 inches, 20 to 30 centimetres, in height, and you see even the slightest hint of budding, that is your signal to act immediately. So it's spring, the cover crops have grown tall, and we've cut them down right on schedule. What do we do next with this huge pile of organic matter? Gardeners usually follow two main approaches here, and both have distinct advantages. The first, classic method, is soil incorporation. The chopped green material is often broken down a little further with a spade and then lightly dug or tilled into the top layer of soil, typically no deeper than 4 to 6 inches. It is crucial not to bury the material too deep, because organic matter needs oxygen to properly decompose. Once incorporated, the greenery breaks down quickly, substantially enriching the soil with vital nutrients. The second, more modern and gentler approach, which is highly popular in regenerative and natural gardening, is the no-till method. With this method, the green matter is simply left on the surface of the bed to serve as mulch. You might also use a flat cutter or scuffle hoe to sever the roots of the cover crops about 2 to 3 inches below the surface, ensuring you don't actually turn over the soil. In this scenario, the severed roots remain underground to decompose, drastically improving soil structure, while the tops protect the surface from drying out, suppress weeds, and slowly release nutrients with every watering and rain shower. The choice really depends on your personal preferences and the current condition of your soil. For heavy, compacted clay, that first light tillage can be highly beneficial, but if your soil is already loose and friable, it's usually better to skip the digging entirely. We've already talked about that fantastic combination, rye and vetch, but can we create other mixes? Absolutely. Formulating cover crop blends is an advanced technique, the real expert level, that lets you tackle multiple challenges simultaneously. The core principle is simple. Combine plants from different families to achieve maximum synergistic effect. The classic example pairs grasses with legumes. Grasses, like winter rye or rapeseed, provide substantial organic matter and develop a robust root system that effectively structures the soil. Legumes, such as winter vetch, do the crucial work of enriching the soil with nitrogen. By combining the two, we get a complete fertilizer package and significant soil improvement. You can even develop more complex blends, perhaps adding brassicas if your crop rotation allows. However, for late fall sowing in November, nothing beats the tried and true duo, winter rye and winter vetch. This pair is the most reliable, frost-hardy, and effective combination available. For beginner gardeners, I highly recommend starting with this particular blend. You simply can't go wrong, and you are guaranteed to see fantastic results come spring. Finally, let's shift our perspective. Don't view late fall cover cropping or sowing green manures as a one-off task, but rather as an essential part of a comprehensive, long-term strategy. Healthy, fertile soil isn't built in a single season. It is the result of consistent, thoughtful, and methodical care. By integrating late fall planting into your yearly gardening cycle, you initiate a continuous process of soil regeneration and improvement. With each passing year, your soil will become increasingly loose, well-structured, and rich in humus and beneficial microorganisms. You'll find yourself relying less and less on store-bought fertilizers because your green helpers are busy producing them naturally, right where they're needed. Crop yields will increase, and your plant's resistance to disease will simultaneously improve. You stop fighting nature through constant digging and chemical fertilizing, and instead begin to collaborate with it, utilizing its own proven mechanisms. Sowing cover crops late in the year is more than just an agricultural technique. It's a profound investment in the future of your garden, in its health and longevity. It embodies the philosophy of smart, mindful gardening, one that truly bears fruit in every sense of the word. So, let's quickly summarize what we've covered in our discussion. Was it too late to sow cover crops in November? You now have the definitive answer: absolutely not. In fact, it's a strategically sound and incredibly smart move. We've learned that these seeds won't freeze. Instead, they undergo a beneficial natural cold stratification, We saw how this simple autumn task saves us a ton of time and effort come springtime. Our green allies use the winter meltwater to establish a living carpet that smothers weeds, enriches the soil, and keeps those beneficial earthworms happy. Crucially, we established that the key to success lies in choosing the right varieties. Winter rye and vetch remain our absolute foolproof favourites. So now, when you look out at your November garden, you don't see sad, empty dirt. You see a blank canvas, a place where you can start creating a masterpiece of fertility today. Thank you so much for sticking with the video all the way to the end. I truly hope this information was helpful and inspired you to take on some new gardening challenges. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you learned something new today. Now here's a question for you. Have you ever tried planting cover crops over the winter? Or has this video convinced you to try it for the first time? Share your experience, your plans, or any doubts you have in the comment section below. Let's keep the discussion going. See you next time.